everyone. I am Reverend Dr. Sheri Pallas, and welcome to Fireside Creators. We are doing a special show on this Saturday because I am speaking with two people over in the UK, and our normal Tuesday hours, as we saw with Chrissy this week, would be the middle of the night for them. So I am taking it easy on them and making sure that they are wide awake and able to have these discussions. If you are watching on YouTube, please like and subscribe. If you are watching on Facebook, please go into StreamYard and approve it so I can see your name in the conversations. Otherwise, it will just be Facebook user. I want to thank so much to our sponsors. Without them, we would not be able to have all of this cool stuff on the show. If you would like to become a sponsor, if you like the show and you enjoy watching it, we have sponsorship as low as $3 a month, and I try and give you cool things. But most importantly, you will be able to go on to the VIP after the show and talk live on screen with the panel. But you're supporting me and you're supporting this show and keeping it going. So I hope that you do so. I really, really appreciate your generosity. Just a cup of coffee, and I hope that helps. So today's show is on religion's effects on relationships. And this is just a guess because I don't really know the ins and outs of Clint and Lisa's stories. But if you're looking for a show on how religion can benefit your relationships, this probably isn't the show. While there are people who have gained a lot of support and tools that religion has afforded them, and that's awesome, I don't think that that's what this show is about. So it's going to be interesting nonetheless, and we're going to talk about a lot of different things that a religion has posed into relationships. But like I said, if you are looking for tools, probably not the show that you're going to want. So let's bring on our panel. First we have, I am messing up my tech again. Here we go. First we have Lisa. Lisa is a former evangelical pastor's wife and pro-life activist. She walked away from it all, found herself, her voice, and her own spirituality. Lisa is writing a book about her life, her past religion, abortion, grief over the loss of many loved ones, and her road to healing. She's a certified health coach and studying to become a certified life coach. She is the mother of two amazing daughters. Welcome, Lisa.
Hi there. Thanks for having me.
Oh, I'm so glad you're here. I can't wait to have these conversations.
Yeah.
Okay, next we have Clint. Clint Heacock is the host of the MindShift Podcast, which is all about reclaiming your life and identity post cults and post religion. He also helps educate people on the dangers of such movements like the Christian right and dominion theology of today. Welcome, Clint. How are you?
Yeah, good. Glad to be here.
I'm so glad to have you on. I was on your show a couple of years ago, so it's
That's
so cool
true.
for you to be on mine. And Lisa, I'm a guinea pig for her life coach, and she rocks. So go ahead and get her for that.
Yeah.
So I just recently posted in Facebook about how I found out a couple months ago through trying to formally change my name that I am still married. I thought I was divorced in 1997. He went on to marry two more women. And I have been really throwing this up in the air as far as all of the loopholes that this provides and religion provides for these. But I know that religion can have a positive effect, like I said in the beginning, of teaching loyalty and forgiveness and love. But far more often, it has a negative effect. Like for me, my husband and I, when we were boyfriend and girlfriend, were great. It was tumultuous. We were young. We were both very damaged. But once we got married, he believed he owned me. And religion put all of that on there. So our relationship changed dramatically, and it became extremely abusive. It became domineering, and I had to become submissive. So I'm wondering what your stories are like out there, because mine wasn't so good. Lisa, you go ahead and start.
Yeah, well, Clint, it wasn't like that.
Good. I didn't think he was.
No.
That's good.
Yeah,
doesn't strike me as that way.
It's not just because he's on the show. It was not, it's not domineering. It's not, wives submit to your husband, even though that was part of our vows. And initially I screwed up the vows, which made everybody laugh. But I didn't know he was going to say, like, your God is my God. And he changed it, what mine said.
Yeah, he did.
Clint's. So it was like, wait
a minute. The pastor did?
Yeah. So
wow.
He had a massive sermon. It was so long.
It was forever.
It was forever. Yeah. He got a microphone.
He preached a whole sermon.
It was.
You don't want to give that guy a mic.
Like Clint went, and I'm like, okay, well, I got these vows down, right? I'm just going to listen. And then all of a sudden he's like, and your God will be my God. And I just said, what? And that was it. The laughter ensued. But so even though the pastor was saying it, Clint and I have a very mutual relationship. It wasn't like that at all.
So when was this? When did you guys get married?
1992.
Mine was 88.
Okay.
Wow. Yeah.
Yeah. Big hair, big wedding dress.
It hasn't changed, right?
Shoulder pads. It all comes full circle, Sheri.
Yeah.
So, Clint, what did you think when this pastor threw in those extra vows of submission and all of that?
I had no idea he was going to do that either, obviously, because when we rehearsed the wedding, I think we went through it. He's like, we'll just repeat the vows and it'll be normal. And he changed. I think he was quoting from the book of Ruth or something like that, or Esther, one of those ones. And it was like, what are you talking about? But he basically preached about a 40+ minute sermon, full on sermon. Wow. We were all just standing on the stage going, what the hell is this guy doing?
I mean, thank God I was wearing tennis shoes under my dress because there's no way I was wearing heels. And now I'm like, thank God that happened, because we were bored out of our skull. Like, shut up. I was just like.
Yeah. No idea he was going to do that either.
Nah.
He said, I'll just say a few words and then we'll move on. No, 40+ minutes.
Wow.
Yeah. Full on sermon.
I got a call at work. I was 5 months pregnant, and I got a call at work from my mom, who informed me that she had just spoken to Vince and that they had decided we were getting married.
Oh.
So she said,
nice.
We had originally set a date and then backed out because I didn't want to be a pregnant bride when I came up pregnant. And she said, in the beginning of August, you're getting married on September 3rd. Just bring your shoes. So I ended up getting total shotgun wedding, pregnant bride, in my mother's front yard. So neighbors were coming out. And my only responsibility was my shoes, which, because I was pregnant, I didn't take into consideration. So I ended up being barefoot. I couldn't wear my shoes either.
Literally barefoot pregnant.
So I'm walking
Couldn't
down.
Make this up.
First thing I said, I loved Vince. I did love him, but we were very, very toxic. And because I was forced into getting married, there's a picture of me standing at my mother's front door, getting ready to walk down the sidewalk into the big long grass. And I started to cry, and I prayed that Jesus would return. Because every Sunday when I was at church, the pastor would say, today could be the day, Jesus is going to return today. Yeah. So I'll never forget it. I stood there, tears pouring down my eyes, and said, if you're making me get married right now, then you better return. Don't make me be in this relationship forever.
Wow.
Amazing.
And I wasn't. I mean, our like I said, our marriage was very toxic. We were only together 14 months afterwards because everything went to shit.
Yeah.
But I mean, religion makes you do things that,
Yeah.
So where are you guys now?
Where are we now? We're clearly in two different places. We have separated about, 7 months ago?
Yeah.
So that was kind of all part of this journey that I'm sure we'll get into. But that's the latest development in our marriage, I would say. Biggest change, obviously, massive change.
Well, tell me about that journey.
Well, there's a lot to talk about. I mean, it was a long process. We had a lot of conversations over the years about where we were going. And I mean, Lisa can tell about her side, obviously, with all the deaths in the family that we went through. And from my perspective, that obviously changed a huge part of our relationship because we were apart for so long, with her taking care of her dad back in the States. He had a brain tumor. So she moved back there and lived there for about 6 months until he died. And I think I would say that was a big change, because it was like, if you're not happy and you see all these people die, life's too short to be miserable, So off the back of that, a lot of things changed in the next couple of years.
Lisa?
Yeah. I mean, I think we didn't get married in a shotgun, but we did get married quick.
Yeah.
So in the church, you can't shack up.
Yeah.
Right. I mean, that was what was said. So if you want to be together, even though we were, sneaking around, but I moved from my parents' house into Clint's house, but only when we got married. So we got engaged about 3 weeks after we started dating, although
my God.
Yeah, it's all very fast.
But we knew each other for years before.
Okay.
Her brother and I were best friends.
Yeah, we didn't just meet and then
Okay.
We'd known each other for years. I knew her parents. I mean, her brother and I, we played soccer together when we went to high school together. So I knew Lisa and her parents for years and years, before. We were friends for a long time.
Yeah.
That makes sense then.
Yeah. Yes. It wasn't like we saw each other once and then 3 weeks later got engaged. So but we had started dating though. We weren't in a dating relationship. So we started dating, we got engaged, and then 6 months later we got married, because again, it's like especially in the church, like, hurry up, like, let's just get this done so that we can get married and we can live together, happily ever after, as God is our witness. Apparently I'm supposed to, your God is my God thing. So,
even though you didn't say it.
I didn't say it. I didn't know what he was doing. I was like, and then laughter erupted. So it was perfect. It worked great.
It worked.
You guys.
Yeah, totally. It would only happen to me. So, but then we got married 6 months later, got pregnant 5 months after that, got pregnant, and then we had our daughter, and then 6 months later got pregnant again and had our second daughter. And I was like, that's gotta be it. Like, and so within a 2-year period, life changed. And I was only just 22. Clint was 25, just 25. So we were young. We, it wasn't like we were forced to. We loved each other, well, he can speak for himself, but I did. But then we just went down a very different journey. We both went to a Christian high school that we didn't go to together because he's way older than me.
Thank you. 4 years.
So he was long gone.
I graduated before she did.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
Before I even came to the high school. So that tells you. So we went to this Christian high school, and I was the type that, during Bible class, we had these old portables. The window was open. Me and my friends would jump out when the teacher turned his back. I was one of those, like, this is boring. Let's go. I used to draw like different kinds of our fingers, and like put them on paper and stick them on all over the school, and different, male parts all over the school. Just whatever kind of.
You were that girl.
Yeah. That was about as bad as I got. Like, it wasn't, no drugs.
At a Christian school.
Boys were the problem, really.
Okay.
So I was always kind of like that anyway. I didn't quite fit. I was just a little bit on the rebellious side. So when Clint and I started dating, and he was like, I really want to go to Bible college. Like, to do what? Oh God. Okay.
Yeah.
To become
the dream.
Or a teacher. And I was like, teacher, be fine. Pastor, I am not a pastor's wife.
Yeah. That definitely had a huge impact, because like she said, the plan was kind of like within the first year of getting married, We were moving down from Seattle down to Portland so I could go to Bible college. We had our 2 daughters down there in Portland. So it all happened so fast. And obviously it had a huge financial impact on us because she wasn't able to work. I wasn't able to work. I was doing odd jobs here and there, but you know, it was a massive strain. I would say just that alone on our marriage, you know, it was so hard to just financially. You did, but we were killing ourselves.
Yeah,
we were doing like 4 or 5 different jobs and so difficult to get by, you know. So it was a huge, but we always thought, you know, God's gonna, it's a sacrifice that we're making for the kingdom, you know. God's gonna come through for us someday. This is all this hard work and sacrifice is gonna pay off.
And we were surrounded. We were in a bubble. We were surrounded. Yeah. We lived in student housing. We were surrounded by all these Christians. They had the student wives like club or something. And I was like, oh, for God, please don't make me go to this. There's no windows to jump out of. We would, like, create like the centerpieces for their dinners. And I'd be like,
yeah, it's pretty bad.
God, I have to, you know, like a couple of my friends are like, please go. And I'd come back home going, I don't fit into, I don't make shit. I don't do that. I just want to go home. Just feed me chocolate and let me go home.
So if I'm understanding this correctly, it started off on 2 different paths. Because Clint wanted to be a pastor and you didn't want anything to do with this.
Well, I don't know if you wanted to be a pastor, did you? Didn't you want to be a teacher?
Yeah, that was my thought. I just wanted to be a Bible college teacher. But what happened was over the years, I first started out, I got a gig as a youth pastor at this little tiny Baptist church for 2 years. The first 2 years we were at Bible college. And I thought, well, this isn't so bad. I mean, this is getting good experience and all that. And then we quit that job and we went to another church where I was just the drummer in the worship band. I thought I'm not going to be in leadership anymore. But then over the years, we stayed at this church. I became a Bible teacher. I became an elder. Eventually, I became the head elder. I became the head pastor. We ended up staying there for 12 years.
Oh, wow.
So that was never the intent. And I was still going to Bible college and then seminary. So I just kept going to get more education while I was working at the church. And I ended up staying there 12 years. I didn't think I was going to be there that long.
Yeah.
What were you doing in that time?
It wasn't a plan. What was I doing? So when I was pregnant with my second daughter, I had an abortion in high school, a Christian high school. So it was completely,
taboo.
Yeah. So I was a little bit rebellious, but boys were more my thing than like drugs and drinking. So I was in a relationship with this guy who was not a Christian and I got pregnant and I didn't want to tell my parents. My parents were really well known in the community. I didn't want to bring shame to them. So I thought, well, I'll face God with an abortion rather than the church with a pregnancy. And I saw girls at my school, a few get kicked out. Had to stand in front of everyone and tell them they're pregnant. And I'm sure, the boys get nothing, but the girls get shamed. And I thought, I'm not doing that. Like, I'm going to graduate from high school in like 9 months, So I secretly went and had an abortion and it just destroyed me. It destroyed a lot of my future. Now, if that was related to the shame and guilt the church plays, in the or if it was an instinctual thing as, oh my God, what have I done? Because it's a hard decision to make whether you're in a church or not. And, but I think religion played a huge part of guilt and shaming you before you choose abortion or before you get pregnant out of wedlock. And then shames you afterwards and then goes, but don't worry, it's okay. Because we have this great, amazing God who will forgive you for all of your sins. Right. So I'm like, I found, I was like, I need to get help because I've got this one daughter that I'm like looking over and making sure she's breathing. Cause I know God's going to take her from me. Like, I know he's going to. And so I have these things.
You deserve to be punished.
Yes. Yeah. I deserve to be punished and he's going to take her and this is what's going to happen. So anyway, long story short, I thought I don't want to be one of those screwed up moms. So I found a pregnancy center who deals with post-abortion recovery. And I got really involved. I took it, got it really involved in it, started volunteering, and then they hired me to be the director. So I used to travel around America and share my story and talk about leadership and talk about post-abortion issues. So I went into schools and homeless shelters and wherever anybody let me go, churches. So I was kind of doing all that. We were very much in a bubble in the church. We didn't really have anything outside the church, did we, Clint? Like, not really.
Not really.
Yeah,
I
really.
didn't either. Not
We always
until,
felt bad about it, because we knew we were, especially as leaders in the church, you're supposed to have a relationship with non-Christians. You're supposed to be evangelizing and proselytizing all the time, and I'm, as a
doing
pastor,
a sales pitch.
I'm telling people that in the congregation that's what they should be doing. And yet I wasn't barely doing it myself, and I felt really guilty about it all the time. I think a lot of evangelicals do. They feel like they're not doing enough for God. They're not reading their Bible enough. They're not praying enough. They're not witnessing enough. It's just this constant shame and guilt spiral.
Well, and I think the shame is the most destructive.
Yeah.
Whether that be personally, in relationships. I mean, that's one of the things that I'm talking about in my situation as far as the religious loophole. So I was forced to get married because I was pregnant, and a pregnant woman unmarried is a walking, you're a sinner sign, right? A billboard walking everywhere of, it's, I'm a sinner, I'm horrible,
Can't
all
hide
of those things. Yeah. So, and then when, because it was an evangelical, they didn't care so much about divorce, just as long as I got married. And then we split up. And about 10 years later, I got divorce paperwork, which I just found out was totally bogus. But he continued to get married because he thought fornication was a far worse sin than adultery.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
And we were friends till the very end. And when he was sick, he called me because he was very concerned about my soul. And he was getting ready to marry his third wife. And I was in a long-term relationship. At this point, we were together 4.5 years, something like that. And Vince called me and told me that I was missing out on blessings in my life because I was living in sin. And that we should go ahead and get married. And I kind of erupted on him and said, my relationship of living in sin has lasted longer than any of your marriages.
Yeah. How ironic.
I mean, his longest marriage was mine, as far as being together at 14 months.
Yeah.
Didn't even make 2 years.
Yeah. And I mean, I was like,
wow.
And so I said to him, if I get to heaven and God says you didn't legalistically do this, so you're doomed to hell, then I don't want a part of that God.
Yeah.
God knows my heart and knows that I'm committed to this man. He is committed to me, and any type of legal paperwork or church service or something is not going to change that.
Yeah.
On the flip side, he was getting married, which wasn't legal. We find out now.
Yeah.
To avoid the sin. So he was
so ironic,
adulterous, fornicating because of his adultery. So hypothetically speaking, we get to the pearly gates and God says, what? That we lasted until he died? It is the sin of his extra wives, even though he thought he was being religious and following God and doing the right thing, even though it was the wrong thing.
Yeah.
I mean, there's so many religious loopholes in relationships and these types of things. And I feel like I'm a walking poster child for it right now. I mean, technically, I was married until death do us part. We lived on 3 separate coasts, 3,000 miles away. He got married 2 more times. I lived with 2 men. But technically.
Still married.
And somehow that means something. I don't. Yeah. But, back in the day, it was like a piece of paper. It's just, I'd hear, people going, oh, it's just a piece of paper. And I'd be thinking, oh, it's not just a piece of paper.
Commitment.
But it is literally that.
Yeah.
It's an agreement 2 people enter into.
Yeah.
It's a contractual type agreement. Yeah, that's what it is.
The one that I lived with, not my husband. But I mean, we committed to each other. It was my longest relationship. We weren't married, but we were committed to each other. And I think that's the whole point. And then religion gets in and adds all this other bullshit on top of it.
It does.
The shame, the judgment, the societal judgment, especially on women. It can create even more problems, than we have.
Yeah, absolutely. True. I think when Clint started moving up the ladder, and not even that he was pushing for that, with being an elder and then a head elder, then a head pastor, I kept saying to him, I don't play the piano and sing. Like what? So now, because I have kids, I also get shoved into the children's ministry.
Into the nursery.
Oh, and I'm like, I love my kids. I even love the other kids, but like, I'm not a children's ministry person, but I'm a woman. I have kids. I got to put in my time, and then churches, they get a 2-for-1 deal. It's like I sat back and did nothing. I did a lot of stuff behind the scenes.
Yeah.
It just,
and I was paid for it.
No, well, you were barely getting paid for it. So yeah.
They did. They got a 2-for-1 deal. A lot of churches do. They hire the pastor, but then they expect the wife to do so much without getting paid at all.
What's a partnership in Christ?
Yeah,
right?
That's right. You're working together. Your teammates.
Yeah,
which kind of does surprise me that they would even have hired Clint, knowing that I was like, I tried really hard to play the game. I was pretty good at it. I even won an award, and like I think I was a senior in high school, and they're like, best Christian award or whatever.
Wow.
Like a teacher, will.
You actually
vote for you, right? And they nominate you. I stand up, and all my friends are like, "What the hell?"
No way. Boom.
I'm in drama.
I never won any awards. What the hell?
And I'd like to thank God because the thing is, I was in drama. I was good at
acting.
Hilarious. He got to see like the both sides, but then I'd be like, ugh. And it just became, it was a really toxic environment anyway, but
it was,
so it just put a lot of stress on our marriage financially with all the schooling but thankfully when we started walking away from the church and walking away from religion, we did it together. That, we're friends. We're talking here openly. We don't, we talk every day. We share a dog and kids, but it really there were times when he was in elders meetings on our anniversary, and it was like, what the hell? Yeah.
Now let me just say that in defense of Clint, which I normally don't do as far as men.
Thank you.
I don't either. Yeah.
Yeah. So this is a rare moment.
You can throw me under the bus later, Sheri.
Exactly. But
just
being told that the church is more important than your marriage, which I'm sure is what you were told, God first.
Yes.
That was a given. That was a given that you would have been at elder meetings on an anniversary because God is first.
Yeah. And the thing is, it wasn't like I wasn't trying to get out of them. But there was always some emergency that was, we had to solve it tonight. Like, no, it's an emergency meeting. We have to get. I'm like, I've got stuff to do. I've got to go. It's my anniversary. Oh yeah, but if you don't come, the church is gonna fall apart and we're gonna be in trouble and blah 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 blah. So I'm like, oh my God, I'll make it up to you later, which is ridiculous. I should have told them to piss off. I mean, I should have, now I would, but that's the thing. Back then, you're, like you say, you're serving God. It's so important that the church keeps going.
Yeah.
And being the businesswoman that I was for so many years, I had been in that position. I had been traveling on an anniversary or something like that. So it's kind of given with a career. But when you add God on top of it, it's the shame, it's the rebellion or whatever else, and your marriage is going to fall apart if you don't show up. I mean, it adds all these other things on top of it.
It does. And it's not like something that I would ever bring back or it was like, okay, well, whatever. It is what it is. This is the way it is. It's not like when he came home, I was like throwing stuff at him or screaming, it was just like, well, yeah, obviously this is what's happening. So
we tried to make up for it, didn't we? We'd go away a different day when there wasn't an elders meeting. If our anniversary fell on an elders meeting night, then we'd go away the next day or something. So, but it wasn't right still. I mean, that's like you say, Sheri, the kind of demands the church can make. So many stories of pastors whose marriages don't survive because of the stress, the pressure. It's an exhausting job. It's a thankless job. Everyone's criticizing you all the time for every decision you make. You're up on a pedestal. It's very traumatic. It's a lot of anxiety, I think, for pastors and church leaders. So I would never, ever, ever want to be in that position again. I will never be a pastor again.
When we were done, Clint's like, if I ever say I'm going to be a pastor again, you have my permission to hit me over the head with a brick. And I said, I will.
True.
Don't worry. Yeah.
I said I went on to be a Bible college teacher, which turned out to be almost as bad. But at least I wasn't a pastor of a church. I wasn't as
being
bad.
in the demands. Yeah.
Yeah.
Hi, Michelle. Glad you're here.
And one of the things too, I think it's interesting is that that is a thing that happened in our marriage and probably happened in many people's marriage. But again, like I said, thankfully after all that, we had a hot tub and we just sit there and talk for hours about the dysfunction and about the crap and how we can keep our marriage going and where's the problem and we need to work on our marriage. And, it was like all of those things. And we had 2 kids that, they were the pastor's kids. And I was like, I do not want to raise my kids as pastor's kids. Like they're kids.
That adds so much more trauma on top of it.
It is. And I remember somebody saying, it was somebody in one of your group chats, Clint, said, what happens is if your marriage breaks down, then it's like, oh, it's because you've left Jesus. Like you've walked away from the church. Look what happens now. Your marriage falls apart.
That's what you get.
Like, it's the opposite, right?
Yeah. So ironic.
Well, it shows to the strength of your friendship that you could have walked away together and, been all of these years and still sitting in front of me right now having to talk about this. I mean, people thought Vince and I were weird. We were doing this at the same time, I mean, when I was still in California, I started dating the guy who I moved to Florida with. And Vince and his girlfriend would come watch our son for the weekend while me and my boyfriend would leave. So they'd stay at our house and it was always a friendship. In fact, I said for many years that marriage ruined our relationship. Because of everything that was involved. But to add the shame and everything else. But it says it's a testament to both of you and your characters to have done what you've done.
Yeah, I mean, I think over the years, it was just a slow burn, a slow drifting apart. I mean, there's all sorts of things. And the other thing is you can't just blame religion for the breakdown of a marriage. I mean, you just can't. That's ridiculous. And on the positive side, and it could be because I've gotten rid of anybody who just throws judgment at me. I'm quite good at just going, okay, bye, and not shedding a tear. But nobody, even those who are in the church and still Christians and still in the church have ever, when we made our announcement of separating, has ever thrown I don't know if Clint's gotten it, but I have not gotten any negative feedback. I've gotten we love you both as long as.
That is fantastic.
I know.
That is fantastic.
It's important to say that. There may be people in the background and maybe they're too afraid to tell me, but
I haven't heard anything.
Let them go judge in the corner.
Yes.
People were surprised. I think that's what I got. A few people said, wow, I'm surprised to hear that. Wow, that's big
shocked.
news. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it's a surprising thing because we are so close. That's the thing is that we've always talked, like Lisa said. We've always had a good relationship as far as, we talk for hours and hours and hours. She'd tell me to shut up. It's like my daughter once said, Dad, you should be a professional talker. That's what you should be, So. And
then you did mine.
Yeah. He goes, I come to them because I'm a teacher. And she goes, oh, good. That's what you should do then. And then left. See ya. All right. Just making sure.
Yeah. But I've never heard any judgment from any Christians saying, you're in sin because you're separating or whatever. But probably like
evangelicals
you,
don't
I've
mind
gotten rid of
divorce,
most
so
of
at
them.
least you have that on your side.
Yeah. But I've gotten rid of most of my, because it was during the Trump era. I just like Lisa, I dumped dozens of Facebook friends who were I'd gone to high school with or whatever, and they were total Trump supporters, and we used to get in these huge arguments. And I'm like, you know what? I'm done. I'm not going to waste my time. So they probably would have judged me for separating, but they're gone. I've unfriended them. So bye. I don't care.
Yeah.
So was the catalyst all of the deaths? I know that you suffered so many, and watching it just broke my heart. But was that the catalyst to say life is short?
It's interesting because people, not funny, nothing, that's not funny. People would ask if it was COVID, and I'm like, well, no. I mean, you don't throw away 29 years of marriage because you've had a bad year. Yeah. And I would say the same thing with the deaths. You don't throw away 28 years, 29 years because you've had a few really shitty ones. But I think what happened is it's been a slow burn over several years, and we would do a check-in, or we had a marriage counseling. We talk, so it's like none of it was a surprise. I've been very open about things with Clint. He said things, so it's not like this was all a surprise or like one of us just went, and there's no affairs, there's no abuse. It wasn't like that. But I think what happened was, honestly, within a 2-year period, 22 months, we lost 12 people.
Oh my God.
And crazy. Not COVID. I mean, we're talking, and not all old, like, no. You know what I'm saying?
Like your son-in-law.
Yeah, my son-in-law, our son-in-law. So I think what happened was really, for me personally, I don't know about Clint, but I'm the one who brought this up to him and said, I gotta go. Like, I can't. It's because of that. It really, I think the slow burn, and that was just okay. I mean, life is really short. It's really fragile, but I'm not going to make any move. We didn't have a conversation before that, but there was no way I was making a move or Clint was making a move during the time of that grief and pain and doing that to our children and especially our daughter who lost her fiance. I mean, timing is everything. And then when everybody was kind of not coming out of it, but like lifting their head up and a lot more within themselves. And I felt like my daughters were really on a good path. And I'd been in a year of therapy. Then it was time. So I think it was the catalyst to go, life is too short to be unhappy, and we need to figure out what that is. And I think we need to live separately in order to do that. So I'm going to do what I need to do, and you need to do what you need to do. We're not going to add all these relationships and boyfriends and girlfriends. We need to focus on what we want, and if that may bring us together or it may pull us apart, we don't know. We didn't know at the time. So that's
I think that was the thing. We had to try it. That was the decision we came to. We said, look, we're not really making any major decisions at this point other than to separate, live in two different places, and then let's just give it like 6 months and we'll be talking during that time as to how is it going. We're going to know if we're happy or miserable within, within that 6 months. And, obviously there's been stresses on us for various reasons, getting settled in, and I've had to learn a whole lot of new stuff that I never dealt with before, but I'm doing all right. I think Lisa's doing fine. We know what we're doing,
I think
we talk a lot.
People are surprised at how quickly we settled into being okay. Yeah. But I was like, we were kind of separated for a really long time. So it was just a physical separation. So I think, he can decorate with all of his World War I. You can see it back there, World War I stuff. And I can.
A wife will never allow.
And he goes, "You probably hate this," and I go, "Oh, it doesn't matter. I don't live here."
Yeah, a wife would never allow that. Feel free, Clint.
Yeah, but see, you got all your stuff on the back shelf behind you there. So
my incense, I can burn incense.
Yeah, burn incense all day long. Yeah, gives me a headache. Funny. I can't take it, man.
That's so funny. Yeah. Well, I have been struggling the last few weeks over being hit over the head with hypocrisy with a lot of people that I know. And I want to applaud you both for being healthy enough to know that you shouldn't have left during the heartaches, for being healthy enough and loving enough for you two to work through this together. It really is a testament to you two and to who you are and your character. And I definitely want to applaud you both for that.
Oh, thank you.
Well, and I would say too, just on that point, Sheri, that going back to the religion piece, when we did finally separate and whatever happens, we don't know going forward, but if we do get divorced or whatever, that religion component is not a factor. And I went through some therapy for about 6 weeks with through work. We can get free counseling through my work where I work at a college. And that was really helpful for me because she said, I'm picking up that you still have a little bit of this religious component that you separating is, against the Bible. It's against God. And where's that coming from? And I'm like, wow, that I did not see that coming at all, So we talked through that, and it was really helpful because I thought, I need to get rid of that last little piece that this, because when you get married, like Lisa said, it's for life. It's a commitment before God and everybody. It's and I've told this story many times. My oldest sister, she stayed married in a miserable, loveless marriage for over 35 years until her husband died of a terrible disease, but she would not get a divorce, even though she was utterly miserable. Because she said the Bible does not allow for divorce.
But your mom and dad were the same.
And same with my parents.
And I'd say to Clint, I'm like, I'm not going to do that. I ain't doing what your parents did. And my parents have both passed away, but they did stay married until they passed away, till death us do part. But it was a different relationship. They actually really loved each other. They danced in the kitchen. They were literally in love. They weren't perfect. I saw something completely different. I'm like, why are we not dancing in the kitchen? Because that's But
that's the difference, isn't it? Because with my parents, I can remember my mom said to me, she admitted to me once that her whole marriage has been basically like a loveless sham from the beginning.
Oh, God, that's heartbreaking.
She was forced to get married. My dad was forced to marry her when her husband disappeared and she left her with 2 kids. And so the mother felt really bad about it. And so she forced my dad to marry my mom. And that was actually his brother. So it's like a Jerry Springer show. My mom was originally married to my uncle.
It's a biblical one, right?
So, that's what she said.
Well,
that in the Bible, if someone's partner dies, the next person is supposed to step in and marry the wife. If the brother's still alive, then he gets to marry the wife. I mean, and that's what my grandmother told my dad. You're his brother. You need to take responsibility for the fact that your older brother disappeared and left her with 2 children. You're going to marry her, and he didn't want to, but he did anyway. And that was again religion.
You wouldn't be here. And
that's true.
Wouldn't be here. Like it's a good thing.
There's one good thing that came out of it.
Wow.
But it's just crazy shit. And then they went through the Bill Gothard cult. They tried to model their marriage on that line. And my mom was utterly miserable because she was told to submit. And that was what the Bible taught. My dad was not a spiritual leader. He was not the head of the household kind of a person. But he tried to be that person. So religion just screwed up their marriage big time from the beginning, literally all the way till the day he died.
Yeah.
Crazy.
Vince once said to me, "You're so smart, you never got married again." To which I responded, "I learned from my mistakes."
Yeah, you're too smart to do it again, Sheri.
Well, and you know what? It really added a trauma because I have always had this fear. Like I've been engaged twice, 2.5 times, kind of, maybe 3, 2.
Who's counting?
Yeah, but I never took that step because I always feared that if I did, then I would become property again. I mean, things changed so much when we got married that, I had to, when I started doing podcasts and stuff like this, I had to call his best friend and say, there's some stuff I need to say that's not going to come off well.
Yeah.
And because of religion, Vince would rape me. I didn't know it was rape at that point. I thought it was submission. I thought it was, and the most shocking thing was this friend when I contacted him and said, I don't want you to find out through a podcast. I don't want you to find out through this way. He said, I'm not surprised. And that floored me. I thought it was going to be, Sheri, don't say these things. Don't, and he said, because of his faith, because of the way that he was raised, because of all of those things, he thought he was doing right. And I mean, if Vince were still alive and I said to him, you raped me, he would crack up. He'd say, there's no way. I didn't rape you. Because he was following God, it's not rape. Yeah. And that is, that's one of the twisted things, again, that religion can bring on. I want to say again, religion has had a lot of good things for people in relationships. It teaches them to love and forgive and all of those things. But when you add the shame, the hell, the sin, the property, and all of that submission that religion brings on, relationships are hard enough.
Yeah.
Why do you want to add all that?
There's this expectation, especially for women, right? To be something. And even when you're not, and it's like, okay, I've got to conform to something. Yeah. And it's like trying to, I grew up, my dad, he used to say, Lisa, you can do anything a boy can do, but you can do it better than them. Don't ever, you can do whatever you put your mind to. Then I go to a Christian high school and I'm like, in church. And so you're like, well, I could, but no, I can do anything a boy can do, but I can do it better. What the hell are you talking about?
Yeah.
Like, I'm so confused. Luckily, Clint's not like that. I would have never married him. But the church is, and so there's a pressure where you're like, oh my God, I have to play the piano and sing, and I have to do all these things. And I think it does put a huge pressure to the point, especially I'm speaking for women. We don't know what we want. We don't, there's something in our soul. We know, and we know it's not right. We feel it.
Yeah.
And we're like battling it, in whatever little rebellious way or whatever we can do, but we're not free. And they preach that we're supposed to be free. And it's like such in slavery.
You can gain freedom through submission.
Yeah. I mean,
it doesn't make any sense.
Yeah.
Twisted logic.
And Clint was like, yeah, what? So it was good that I didn't have.
Well, and we've been chatting about this on Twitter recently I posted up something the other day about what was the biblical author that caused you the most problem as an evangelical, Paul, Jesus, John, and almost every response was Paul. And why? I said, why? Because of his homophobic views, his misogynistic views, this whole view about wives must submit to your husband, women must be silent in the church. And I can remember as an evangelical, you're basically doing like hermeneutical backflips to try to explain away the pretty clear meaning of those verses. No, Paul didn't actually mean that women were not to speak in the church and that they should ask their husbands at home. That's exactly what it says. I think
the Trump
crazy.
Presidency alerted me to a lot of that too, because that's what we did in religion, was to justify what things were said. Yeah. And then with Trump, they did the same thing. Well, he didn't really mean that, and it's interpret it, the apologetics.
Yeah, it's so true.
Those things,
But I would say too, it's not just about Christianity, because, for example, look at Islam and Judaism. They're the same type of things when you look at relationships. Mm-hmm. I just had a conversation about a month and a half ago with a woman in New York. She's a Jewish woman. Have you ever seen that series on Netflix called One of Us? She grew up in that community. So she left that community, and her story is basically very similar to what the women went through. But look at Abrahamic religions. Islam, Judaism, and Christianity, fundamentalist religions, they all have a very similar sort of core set of belief systems, and the way they treat women is very, very similar. She had a shocking story, just like the women on that documentary.
Yeah, I had a show a couple weeks ago on the divine feminine and all of the effects that the dismissal of her caused, and especially in men. Taking away that and taking away her power. It's all patriarchy. The Abrahamic religions did that. Yeah, and of course, I hear my Muslim friends saying, no, we allowed for divorce and, all of those things. We're talking about fundies, right? Fundamentalists who use biblical scripture in order to dismiss and hold people down.
Yeah.
Again, before,
Controlling.
and excuse me, my allergies are kicking. Not really crying this time, but I saw Vince right before he died. And he was telling me about how he was divorcing his third wife and how they didn't really know each other because she lived in Washington and he lived in California, and they got married because they wanted to have sex. What it boils down to.
As you do.
What's that?
As you do.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I
As you
said
do.
to him, this doesn't make any sense. Is a vow to God in your wedding, less than fornication? And he said to me, how do you know these things? Because he was like, yeah, you're right. That doesn't make any sense. How do you know these things? And I said, because I've read more than one book. And the ignorance is what I think has people in these things. If they were to stop and question, because God is so authoritarian, don't question, don't think, to your demise. It creates these things when it's my version of submission is not this, it's this, let it be, let it go, let it be. But there's so much in the Bible that's submission that when you have that, I cringe every time I see it on Facebook, the umbrella, the God, the husband.
That's how I was raised.
It drives me crazy.
Yep.
No,
I remember as a kid being told, my mom took me aside, we did a podcast on this. My sister Valerie, when she was 17, she got pregnant. She was messing around and all that. But we were all rebelling against the strictness of my parents' household. And my mom sat me down and explained the reason my sister was pregnant was because she was outside of the umbrella of our protection, and we and God can no longer protect her. So she's fair game to Satan, and that's the way it is. So I'm 9-10 years old hearing this explanation for how come my sister's pregnant? And then now it's up to her. They said to her, look, you made your own bed. Now lie in it. And they basically kicked her out, put her in foster home, and made her give up her daughter for adoption. And
There's
that was Christian parents.
Love in that.
Yep.
Yeah.
Christian parents did that.
Yeah. My mom kicked me out as soon as she could.
Yep.
And that ultimately turned me away from God, because I was like, I don't want your God. Any God that would tell a mother to just abandon her daughter is not a God I would ever follow.
Yep.
Yeah.
That's right.
Yep.
Shocking stuff. That messed Val up for years and decades. She had therapy and counseling and finally was able to find her daughter, even though she'd been given up for adoption and everything. They did reunite. She lives down in Texas now, so they do have kind of a relationship, which is good. It's better than nothing. It's not, a lot of people never find their kid again.
No.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And that's religion that did that, chalk one up to religion.
Yeah. I mean, and that's the problem, is when it's controlling and demeaning. I mean, people, whenever I say love is what we're supposed to be doing. It's not controlling. It's not judgment. And he says, well, I love my daughter enough to kick her out.
Yeah.
That ain't love.
It's tough love, Sheri. That's what it is.
It's bullshit love.
It is.
It is.
I know.
I'm sorry. Go ahead, Lisa.
I was just going to say, I know if I had gone to my parents, they would have never done that. They would have loved me. They would have embraced me.
That's so wonderful.
I know that. But there was this part of me that was like, yeah, but I'm going to get kicked out of school on my senior year, and I'm going to go to another school fully pregnant, and I can't play soccer, and I can't play baseball and basketball. Like, what? I can't. So it wasn't, I was afraid of, disappointing my father, especially like, we're not angry, we're disappointed conversation. And years later, when I told him about my abortion, he was like, I'm so sorry you didn't feel like you could come to us, and so I don't think I would have had that response, but the church, the Christian school, like all of that did not help my decision, and it wouldn't have helped Val's decision, your decision, when you're faced with this, you need the support. But I wouldn't have had it in other areas that would have caused me a lot of shame, and I couldn't deal with that.
But we didn't know there was girls when I was, a couple of years ahead of Lisa at the same Christian high school in Seattle, there were girls that got pregnant and got kicked out.
Yeah. I've seen
this is how strict they were. About 2 weeks before I was we were graduating. I graduated in 1985. I actually went to this party, and it was like an end of the year, and we were all graduating, and it was a one last fling. And this Christian school, you couldn't drink alcohol. Obviously, that was forbidden. Couldn't smoke, couldn't drink, couldn't have sex. If you got caught, you were in big trouble. Well, a couple of kids had one beer, that they shared amongst and I came in the room and they were like, "Hey, you want a beer?" And I said, I didn't like beer at the time. So I said, no, I turned it down. Well, we left. Turns out they all got in trouble for that one beer, and none of them were allowed to graduate 2 weeks later.
Wow.
That's how strict this Christian high school was. They
got to graduate. They didn't get to walk.
Yeah. I mean, they got their certificate, but they didn't get to go through the graduation ceremony.
Shame.
2 weeks before, so here's Lisa looking at something like that going, if they will do that for someone who has a sip of a beer, what would they do to a girl who gets pregnant? You're gone. They're going to make an example of you.
And years later, I went and spoke at that school, and some of
that's ironic.
Two of the principals were my teachers. One, which I jumped out of the school, the window, and the other one was the husband of my soccer coach. And I basically went off on the teachers, if you've got a student who's pretty normal and doing well, and then all of a sudden starts calling everybody, an effing bitch, and start behaviorally, instead of sidelining them, instead of doing find out what's going on in their lives. Maybe
there's something wrong.
So it's
they didn't do that for me either. It was just it's what is it? Spare the rod, or spare the rod, spoil the child.
Yep. Same here.
It was all of that.
Yeah.
The thing about drinking always makes me laugh, because Noah got drunk, Jesus turned water into wine. All of that. I never understood that type of thing.
I know.
Oh, but it was just grape juice. That's what they say. That's actually what they say.
That's what wine is, right?
Yeah. They say it was non-alcoholic grape juice. It's unbelievable.
That doesn't make sense either.
I know.
It doesn't make sense either.
Not supposed to, man.
Yeah.
Kids, it's non-alcoholic, whatever it is.
Yeah,
it's just good old grape juice. Jesus would never drink. He would never turn water into wine so people could get drunk. Come on. At a wedding? Come on.
Yeah, but Noah got so drunk he passed out naked.
Yeah, and then his son got cursed.
Yeah,
for covering him up. I mean, it's just
slavery was born after that. So I mean,
they've justified slavery off the back of the curse of Ham. I mean,
what a crazy the hypocrisy story. And I mean, like I said, I've been trying to work out this religious loophole with my husband and me. I mean, it just cracks me up, because one, I can hear him in the afterlife laughing, going, "I did get you till death do us part,"
Yeah.
My whole thing was, I thought we were soulmates, but not soulmates that were meant to walk this world together.
Yeah.
And that was one of the things that I told him was, we laid a foundation. We were friends. We did all of these things, but we would have killed each other.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It was not something, we wouldn't have grown. We wouldn't have been, he got hooked on drugs. I mean, it was a bad thing. And if religion would have made me stay there, that would have been catastrophic, not only for myself, for him, our child. It would have been catastrophic because of everything that was, allowed under his reign of me as a wife.
Mm-hmm.
Crazy.
Yeah.
Yep. Religion.
But we are at the top of the hour. I hope there's going to be people in the VIP that can come on and ask you questions. Final thoughts. Lisa, I'll let you start. Where can they find you? Where can they get your services? And final words to say.
Oh, thanks. Well, thanks for having us.
This
is our first time doing anything like this publicly, but like I said, we share a lot. So, I'm just on Lisa Heacock on Facebook. I don't do Twitter. Don't get it. Don't understand it. Tried to learn it. Makes my eyes cross. I don't get it.
That's okay.
Instagram is Lisa_Heacock, or Heacock is what it looks like. And that's where I can be found.
Thank you so much for honoring me with your guys' first show.
Oh,
yeah. Thank you so much, Sheri.
Yes.
I love it. Clint, how about you?
So I am on Twitter. Yeah, you can find me at MindShift 2018 on Twitter. There's also MindShift Podcast Facebook page. Obviously, the MindShift Podcast on iTunes, Spotify, Stitcher, Podbean, all those regular podcast platforms. So that's probably the best place to find it. Just find me on Twitter, and then you'll find the links to everything.
There. That way they know exactly what you're saying.
That's the one. There's a couple MindShift podcasts, but if you search my name, MindShift Podcast, you'll find that one.
Perfect. Well, I will see you guys in the VIP. Right. Thank you so much. Another great conversation. I'm so honored to have you both here, and thank you for sharing your story.
Thanks, Sheri.
I will see you guys soon. Thanks so much.
Bye.
Bye-bye. Another great conversation. If you want to, jump on back into the VIP, and we will be continuing the conversation further there with more in-depth. If you would like to, go to sheripallas.com in order to become a member to do so. And I want to thank again the sponsors that we have: Amanda, Michelle, Kirsten, and Ruth. Thank you so much. We have another show on Tuesday. I'm actually changing the title. It will be Theoretical Activism with guest Liam. So I will be posting the information for that. Thank you for watching. Thank you for listening. I am going to try and do this word out again. I will see you guys soon. Thank you. Love always.